episode of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. As we welcome in 2015, I am Michael, your host. This is another episode of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Joining me this week, live from the West Coast in California, Gail Falkenthal. Joining us live from the UK, making his return to boxing in 2015 on the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, EJ Boxing Live, as well as a regular Mr. Boxing Addict. Joining us live from all the way from Taiwan, the one and only Sean Newton. How you doing, ladies and gent?
Excellent. Happy New Year all.
Yeah, Happy New Year, everyone. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
All right. For those who are new to the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the Pound for Pound Boxing Report is a live YouTube show / blog / podcast that talks all things boxing. The motto is, when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When boxing is bad, we will talk about it. The bottom line is, if it concerns boxing, we will talk about it. If you want to find information about the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, two main places you can go. You can check out the blog page from the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. The link for that is b4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. Let me repeat that, b4pboxingreport.wordpress.com, where you can find not just the previous episodes of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report YouTube show and podcast. You'll find articles by yours truly, as well as our special contributor, Kayla Lewis of A Count News. You can also check out the podcast page, p4pboxingreport.podomatic.com, and repeat that, p4pboxingreport.podomatic.com, where you can find all previous episodes of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report podcast. On the blog page as well as the podcast page, we will also provide links to where to find us all over social media, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Google+, Podomatic, on Tumblr. We got a Tumblr page, on Twitter, and the Twitter handle is at P4P Boxing Report. We got a Pinterest board. You can subscribe to the RSS feed for the blog and the podcast. We're also on Stitcher Radio. Just go to StitcherRadio.com. Just do a search of boxing, or just type in Pound for Pound Boxing Report, POUND, the number 4, POUND Boxing Report. You should be able to find us there. Please be a friend, be a pal, be a buddy. Listen to us, check us out on Stitcher Radio, and leave a review, leave some commentary on what we're doing right with the show and how can we improve the show if we do anything wrong. You can also find on the blog page as well as the podcast page a link to where you can donate your account, and the link to donate your account is donateyouraccount.com/P4P Boxing Report. Excuse me, P4P Boxing Report. Let me repeat that, donateyouraccount.com/P4P Boxing Report. And what that is, any link that comes from the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, any tweet, that comes from the Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter page, should you donate your Twitter account, you would automatically have the ability to retweet any tweet that comes from the Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter page. With that, all those matters out the way, let's get the show started this evening. And if you hear any noise in the background, that's going to be Gail's dogs. So if you hear some boxers, going,
they are boxers. It's legit.
If you hear some boxers barking, that's Gail's dog. So apologize for that. I want to start 2015 by going back into doing some analysis on what happened at the tail end of 2014. There were two monster cards really that went down in Japan on the 30th and on the 31st, respectfully. Let's start by going to what happened on the 30th, and I'll go to you on this one, Errol, on EJ. You and I, you especially, we've been talking a lot about Naoya Inoue, real fast rising fighter from the lightweight division. He won the junior flyweight belt in April, having his way in impressive fashion over Adrian Hernandez to win that belt, stopped him in 5, made a title defense, made the bold move of moving up not just 1 but 2 divisions to challenge Omar Narvaez, long-reigning flyweight champion, long-reigning junior bantamweight champion. Some folks thought that this would be too big of a bold of a move for Inoue, young 21-year-old hotshot, as I just said. But Inoue arguably put on the performance of the year as he moved up in weight and in Tokyo, Japan, destroyed Narvaez, stopping him in 2 rounds. He blitzed him. And Narvaez, he may be old, but he was a very durable guy. He took a prime Donaire to the distance back in 2011, and yet he had no shot against Inoue. Inoue knocked him down 4 times. Awfully impressive performance by Inoue. Awfully impressive.
Yeah, I agree, man. Me watching it as well, I actually thought that when he jumped up, I actually watched it live, and I was watching the Argentina broadcast, and they were showing all of Omar Narvaez's reign of his title defenses. You know, obviously he went the distance with Donaire, and coming into that fight, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be a hard fight. So I didn't. At that point, I was just watching it, relaxing. I nearly jumped off my teeth and jumped off my seat in shock. I couldn't believe what I was watching. It was an absolute blitz. He blitzed him. He didn't know what was coming. It was. His nickname, his moniker is the Monster. He looked like a complete monster. The man missed up the whole of the flyweight division into the super flyweight division. He completely beat a long reigning champion who's durable. Like, no one's ever stopped him. No one's ever done him like that. He beat him up, took him down to the body, and the world is always there. In fact, everyone on Twitter, Facebook went crazy, and then I thought they was thinking maybe they done Fire of the Year too early, because we're saying Terence Crawford, but what Naoya Inoue just did, the Monster just did there, was spectacular, doing 2 weight classes like you said, and winning the belt against Adrian Hernandez early in the year, and obviously won defense in that, and they're skipping the whole weight class. So, but definitely the whole boxing world took attention and were thinking, well, boy, maybe this kid could have been Fire of the Year, but they already, prejudged and made Crawford the Fire of the Year. But I tell you, there's some big things, there's some really big fights happening, really big fights that we want to see. Hopefully, versus Donnie in the 90s. Was it Donnie in the 90s? That fight,
yeah.
That fight could happen. There's loads of good fights in that division where he is now. And and also the Estrada fight, the Chocolillo fight. This is so many different avenues that the kid can go to, and he's only 21 years old, and it's like sky's the limit for him, man. But that's what we want to see, man. That stuff he just did there is just spectacular. And I don't know what to more say on it. It just we can't wait to see the kid fight again. He didn't even get hurt, so he should be in the ring pretty soon, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go to you on this one, Gil. During our last show, the end of the year show, you said be cautious of naming the fighter of the year until this fight. You proved to be right in this case. We will go into the possibilities for Inoue when we go to Sean and Boxing Addict, but talk about the impressive destruction of Inoue by Narvaez.
Yeah, you have to think about these guys, as small as they are, what sort of firepower they've got. It's just incredibly impressive. And this kid, 21 years old, this was such a smart fight for him to take because he had absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain. And he got the everything to gain part. If he'd lost, it would have been a shoulder shrug of, oh, well, he's young, great experience for him, understandable. He went up against a seasoned guy, who took Nonito Donaire the distance. Narvaez has still got it. Great. He wins, and we've got what we've got now, which is the emergence of a star, one of many coming up from the lower weight classes. He's an appealing guy. For him to be a world champion with an 8-0 record, 7 of which are the KOs, and that one distance fight. If this guy isn't marketed to the proper markets on the west coast of the United States where there are substantial Asian populations, for example, in Nonito Donaire's home region in the Bay Area of California, they're really missing a chance there, and they need to find some U.S.-based Asian fighters to get in front of an audience because they will love what they see. Love it, but they're going to have to see it first, not be told about it, not be clued in by their fight freak friends. They're going to need to see him for themselves. And by that performance, perhaps one of the best things he did, other than keep his record intact and perform so well, was perhaps give himself a chance to appear on an American television network. That's what needs to happen with him.
I'll go into the future possibilities with you, Sean, in a little bit, but I'm going to go to you, Boxing Addict. Your impressions, did you see the fight, first of all? And if so, your impressions of Inoue's performance against Narvaez?
Absolutely incredible performance. I'm a believer now, definitely. He absolutely destroyed him, didn't he? Within about 30 seconds, he had him on the floor. He was leading with right hands, left hooks, jabbing his head off. He was all over him, and he looked actually a lot bigger than Narvaez.
Yes.
Even going up 2 weights. So I'm looking at him thinking he could probably move up to bantamweight pretty soon, and fight someone like, I don't know, the Japanese guys are up there, Kamida and what's the other one?
Yamanaka.
Yamanaka, yeah. So there could be 2 massive Japanese fights there. Is there anybody in the US who could face him? I don't know at those weights to make him, a big star to go over there. I'm not sure.
Before I go to you on this one, I want to go back to EJ Gale, boxing addict. I've often said that to me, Inoue, when I see him fight, he reminds me of Shane Mosley as he was coming up. The young lightweight Shane Mosley, in terms of how he fights, the combination of boxing skill, speed, and power. I'm going to give you guys an opportunity. When you see Naoya Inoue in the ring, who does he remind you of?
Oh, that's a good one.
I'll be honest with you, like, the way he fights reminds me of Manny Pacquiao on me.
Yeah, I'll second that. He reminds me of a young Manny Pacquiao. It's interesting to go back and look at Pacquiao's early fights. I did that a few months ago. I forgot what a energetic little squirt he was back when he first emerged into the national consciousness in the U.S. anyway, with that frosted blonde hairdo of his, and he was a little wiry, fast guy at the time too. So, incredibly young appearing, even though he was quite a bit older then than Inoue is now. That's a good call. Couldn't do better than that.
I would push back, and I would say he may be even a little bit better than Pacquiao, because Pacquiao was a lot wilder. Inoue is not. Inoue is much more controlled, much more as explosive as he is and as energetic as he is. He's a little bit more calculated, in my opinion, than the younger Pacquiao was. He doesn't leave himself open. He's defensively more responsible than Pacquiao was, and that's why I say he's a little bit, to me, in terms of the way he fights, he reminds me of Mosley. Mosley, he came up being fashioned as this guy who was a power boxer. Well, when I see Inoue, I see a power boxer. I see a guy with real skill, who's explosive, who can move on his feet, but he's more responsible defensively. He's much more complete, put it that way, than Manny Pacquiao was at this stage in his career. And I say that because Pacquiao, he was a young champion too. But when I see Inoue, I say he's more complete than Manny Pacquiao was.
Well, you can either way. You can't be wrong. They're both Hall of Famers. So the way I see it is like you can't go wrong. The reason why I say Manny Pacquiao is the way he bounces around. Shane Mosley, he's not really that. Shane Mosley used to get in close and really put. Inoue can do that. He can set his foot in the canvas and really put some real punches, but then he's got good defense where he just jumps out the way and moves around and makes you chase him and counter punches. But he's got it all. You can't go wrong. You could even combine the two, with the
True. That's true.
You know what I'm saying? Because he combines everything. He's a very complete fighter. I mean, you say which fighters look, to me, the monster, I think he's got his own signature. I think eventually they're not even, comparing. We could compare him, like you said, to them, people just mentioned, but to me, he's just got his own style. No one fights like him, and he's really, really good at what he does. And I'll tell you what, it was a privilege commentating on 2 of his fights, actually 3 of his fights.
Yeah, and for those who hadn't seen Errol's commentary of the fight, just go to EJ Boxing Live, where Errol, he does a really excellent job, terrific job of taking fights, world championship fights, particularly from Asia, Japan especially, and even Thailand. And he commentates for you in English, so he's in it. He's been doing this for the past all of 2014, I believe, and even early on in this year, in a few days this year, he'll take a lot of fights from Asia, and he'll provide English commentary for those who want to use that as an excuse to not watch the fight. So check out his channel. He has a bunch of Asian fights He commentates in English. He's really terrific at that. I'll go to you on this one, Sean. Your thoughts on Inoue's win over Narvaez? Who do you compare him to at this stage of his career? And Gail mentioned the future of Naoya Inoue. She mentioned maybe making him a marketable guy here on the West Coast of the United States. But when you look at his opponents abound. The world is his right now at 112. From 112 to 118, we all know Roman Gonzalez and Estrada. Those are possibilities at 112. I think a big fight at 115 would be a fight with Koki Kameda, former junior flyweight bantamweight champion who moved down to 115. He's going to be fighting for a world title later on this year, or he could move up eventually in another year or two and fight Shinsuke Yamanaka, who you and I believe is the best bantamweight in the world. So your impressions of Inoue, the fight with Narvaez, your thoughts on Inoue, the fighter, who you compare him to, and as well as the future, Sean.
I sort of think he reminds me of Hearns. At that weight, he's pretty tall and he stands outside. He's got huge power, and he just sort of uses a jab, good movement. And, some of those punches he hit Narvaez with didn't really look like they had too much, more of glancing blows, but they sort of had that GGG effect on guys. They still feel it pretty big, even if it doesn't connect like.
That counter left hook that he knocked him down with in the second round was just wicked.
Yeah.
That check hook.
No, that's the thing. I agree that I think he's a more complete fighter than Pacquiao as far as being able to use both hands and not quite as wild as Manny was at the younger weights. But, as far as his upside, like we were talking about earlier, there's a lot of talk about a possible fight with Roman Gonzalez, who wants to move up and get his 4th title. They're talking about, because they're on the same promoter in Japan, and they're talking about possibly a New Year's Eve big card with those guys headlining to sort of give him his 4th fight. But also, like you were saying, he can move up, and you have Yamanaka and also Kameda's brother, and I'm pretty sure he's signed by Al Heyman, and he fought one time in the States, right? Isn't he the Mexican?
You talking Tomoki Kameda, who's done a lot of training and living in Mexico, signed a deal with Heyman. He's supposed to be fighting a unification bout with who is it? Alex Stewart Hall?
Jamie McDonnell.
Jamie McDonnell, you're right.
And like that's a good fight for him to sort of come to the States and get some name recognition, because you can see Heyman is trying to bring him over and sort of groom him, and it's a Japanese fighter, so it'd be big worldwide. Big because it would happen in the States, but big because you have like the home rivalry as well, bringing it over. Yeah. So big things ahead of him. It's exciting. The guy's only 21, and he made a big splash this year. So I would love to see a Roman Gonzalez fight. Really, I don't even know who to pick, because I'm more of a Roman Gonzalez fan, but Gonzalez doesn't have the power that he has. He would wear him down maybe, but he has that one punch power.
Any more commentary for you guys before we move on?
Yeah, just briefly on that division. It was announced today that Paul Butler would be fighting. Paul Butler's the ex-IBF bantamweight champion. He's gone back down to Superfly. And he's going to be fighting the South African Zolani Tete.
Yeah.
Who is the current IBF champion at that weight. So he's fighting him in March. So I'm kind of hoping that Paul Butler can win that fight. And you never know, Frank Warren might be able to get the little monster over to Britain. And I'll go to that.
You better bring a lot of money.
You never know. You never know.
That's the thing, right? The market, like I said, as far as Rigo going to Japan, there's lots of money for the small fighters over there. And that's their sort of their niche. So for those guys, it's great. Lots of fighters locally. You get lots of press, PR. You're well respected. Yeah. But then you go to the States or somewhere else, and people don't know who you are, and you're a small fighter, and they sort of basically ignore you.
Yeah, absolutely. On the undercard of Inoue's bout with Omar Narvaez, Jorge Linares, former featherweight junior lightweight champion, fought Rocky Prieto for the vacant WBC lightweight belt that was vacated by oh gosh, the name slips me right now. I'm used to calling him one name. Omar Figueroa. I used to call him Chris Caban. We used to call him Tone Loc. That's the first thing that popped in my mind. EJ knows why. Arrow knows why we call him Tone Loc, but that's kind of an inside joke thing. Linares, he fought Prieto on the undercard, scoring, as far as I was concerned, impressive fourth round stoppage to win the vacant belt. I'll go to you on this one, Gail. It went pretty much the way I thought it would go. I thought Linares would dominate, eventually stop him, and that's what he did. Your impressions of Linares, who's still on the comeback trail, following his loss to DeMarco a couple of years back to win for the lightweight belt. Your impressions of Linares and how he looked against Prieto?
You know, he looked good. You know, when a guy is on a comeback trail like that, I mean, where they blow hot and cold. Sometimes it's not a linear comeback, you know, a straight line. Sometimes it's up and, you know, 2 steps forward, 1 back. But this was a good fight. Sadly, you know, not all that well seen by audiences outside Japan, except for the really hardcore. The good news for Linares is suddenly the lightweight division, like a lot of the smaller weight divisions, are suddenly kind of sexier. You know, there's guys whose names are getting people excited beyond the tiny hardcore, and you know, it'd be smart for him, you know, just like Inoue did in a way, for him to take a chance against one of the bigger names, even if even if these guys think he's cannon fodder. Honestly, there's nothing for him to lose at this point. You know, it's either going to be a huge leap back, or hey, he's going to stay where he is. So he needs to think about some of those guys in the lightweight division, or you know, up and down a few pounds if he can do it. Some of those weight divisions there, between bantamweight and lightweight, flyweights, can be a little fungible. So I think he should look around and offer himself to whoever will take him at this point.
I'll go to you on this one, EJ. To Gail's point about Linares, there are some fights there. With Terrence Crawford moving up, with Figueroa moving up, you got fighters like Mickey Bay, who beat Gonzalez, upset him to win the belt last year. You got Richard Abril also there. Where do you see Linares right now in the 135-pound landscape?
I see Linares there if Crawford moves up, and I know Omar Figueroa is definitely because he vacated the belt because he didn't want to fight Linares. I see him as legitimately probably 1 or 2 in the division. I'd like to see a match between him and Raymond Beltran. See Raymond Beltran get a shot, or Richard Abreu. Between them 3, they're the best in the division. Mickey Bay, to me, still has to prove. He's still got things to prove. Miguel Vasquez, I was talking about, who lost his
Miguel
belt.
Vasquez. I'm sorry, I said Gonzalez. I meant to say Miguel Vasquez.
No, that's all right. Yeah, Miguel Vasquez, I was talking about. He lost his belt to Mickey Bay. So around them 3, Mickey Bay, Vasquez, and Raymond Beltran, still, because Raymond Beltran he did beat Ricky Burns, just that he didn't get the belt. I see them 3, around them 3. He's around the top 3 in the division, and hopefully maybe them fights can happen. I'm happy for Linares, the 3-weight champion right now. So, and for Venezuela, I'm sure they're very happy about that. But Linares is really good. He's really good to watch. And that's when I heard Linares is fighting that card, I said, yeah, I'm definitely watching that. He's sponsored by Tekken as well, so most of his fights are going to be in Japan as well. I think he's like the top 3 lightweight in the world. And if Crawford moves up, or maybe if Crawford stays there, I don't know. That'd be an interesting fight. But he's definitely very good. Very good.
Sean, Errol mentioned Bay, fighters that I mentioned. There's also a fight that's been on my mind since Linares won the belt. You got Uchiyama, the junior lightweight champion. We will talk about his fight in a little bit. With you being in Asia, have you heard anything about a possible fight between, say, a Linares and an Uchiyama, which I think could be potential a good payday for both guys?
It makes sense. I mean, it would give Uchiyama a chance to move up to get another weight class, and I mean, they both are fighting in Japan right now. I haven't heard anything, but I mean, it makes sense. And I mean, when you look at that division, the names people mentioned, there's no attractive name and nobody that's going to bring any money. I mean, Abril, Beltran, Vasquez, nobody really wants to see those guys fight anyway. And I mean, it's not specifically a great fight for him because it's not going to be a fight that necessarily makes him look good. With Bay, I can see that. I mean, he's big in the States. I mean, he's got a name being affiliated with Floyd and everything, but other than him, I don't think any of those guys are attractive fights. So, I mean, he would probably do better fighting a guy like Uchiyama moving up. It would be a big fight against a long-standing champion moving up to get a belt in another weight. They both fight in Japan. So I could see that. It makes sense.
Before we move on to the card featuring Rigondeaux, his fight with Hasegawa. I'm sorry, I pronounced his name wrong, but I'll get it right. We mentioned Naoya Inoue. He has a younger brother by the name of Takuma Inoue, and I'll give you this follow-up question, Sean, and anybody else can respond. He fought on the undercard as well. Takuma Inoue, 19-year-old brother of Naoya. He scored an 8-round decision win from a former world title challenger, Daniel Narvaez, who's Omar Narvaez's younger brother. Your impressions of the younger Inoue, do you see any potential of him possibly winning a world title? I do. I don't think he's as good as his brother, but I think he's a pretty good prospect.
I haven't seen him fight because when I was looking early on, when that card happened, I couldn't see any feeds for the fight. I mean, I haven't looked lately. But if he's anything like his brother, I watched his brother when he was an amateur, and well, he was young and highly touted. He didn't look so impressive, and he didn't really look like he had much power. And you could see by the decision that he just had against Navarro's brother that, I mean, it wouldn't appear that he has the same power of his brother. But I mean, if he's like his brother, a lot of that might develop later once he gets a little older. So I mean, I can't say much more because I haven't seen him fight.
Before I go to Gail and EJ talking about the younger Inoue, you mentioned something in the chat, Sean. Boxing Addict. I mentioned a fighter who I omitted. I apologize for that. You mentioned Kevin Mitchell. It was good that you mentioned him because Mitchell has said that recently that if he was to fight Narvaez, he would knock him out. So your impressions of Kevin Mitchell in a possible fight with Jorge Linares, say sometime later on this year?
Yeah, well, Kevin Mitchell's the best lightweight in Britain. I think he's always been the best lightweight in Britain, but he's always had problems outside the ring. I think Eddie Hearn's got him back on the straight and narrow now, and he's up there in the rankings with, I think, most governing bodies. He's fighting Daniel Estrada next, at the end of this month, actually. So if he gets through that, I mean, Estrada got beat up by Omar Figueroa last time, so I think Mitchell can win that fight and get a title shot. So Linares, tough fight, but Mitchell is a very good boxer and he's got a bit of power when he's on his game. So, yeah, great fight if it happens, and we could maybe again get him over to Britain because Mitchell's got a big following over here. They could get a big crowd in somewhere, and that'd be a good fight.
Back to the younger Inoue. I know you've seen him, Errol. I'm pretty sure you've seen him, Gail, as well. Your impressions of the younger Inoue, Takuma Inoue?
You know, I haven't seen him, and I'm cautious. We have had a lot of fighters lately with very short professional records who've gotten a chance at fairly high levels and looked spectacular. Now I think we're very eager to rush to judgment with a lot of these guys. You know, when you have admittedly, a guy like Vasil Lomachenko's got a massive amateur record, but, you know, he's got a handful of fights. I mean, I can count his whole professional career on one hand, which is astonishing. You've got his older brother, Inoue, with 8 fights, and, you know, I don't know that we're giving these guys a chance to season and make their mistakes a little bit. I'd like to see them do that. Certainly, he's got the potential. He's got the DNA for sure. He's with the right people. You know, the ingredients are all there for the recipe to be really tasty. But as we all know in cooking, sometimes it comes out of the oven and it is not too good. And it doesn't take much for him to get derailed, for him to get injured. Who knows? I do think there's loads of potential there. But on him, I'm going to take a little more wait and see. And you know, as good as his older brother Inoue was, the reason I wouldn't have picked him for Fight of the Year as good as this fight was is 8 fights. I mean, really, we want to pick someone as Fighter of the Year, and he's had 8 fights. And Crawford, the reason, too, that Fighter of the Year honors went to him, in my opinion, is the magnitude of what he accomplished. What he accomplished both in the ring, he not only achieved but defended his title against very tough people, and he brought an excitement to a lower weight division, and he brought excitement to a whole new group of boxing fans. That's what was amazing. You know, for him to pack an arena in Omaha, Nebraska twice with crazy excited people, that's a accomplishment our sport needs to celebrate, and we need more of it. We can't continue to, at least in the United States, segregate our boxing events off into Las Vegas, New York, and that occasional throwaway in Southern California, San Antonio. That's about it. No, he got boxing into the heartland of the U.S. Warren Buffett was there. I mean, in the cheap seats. How good was that?
Your thoughts, Errol?
About what Gail said, I agree, man. That's why he was the Fight of the Year, man. To stack anyone down in Omaha, Nebraska, you got to be doing something great, man. And he sold the whole place out, the whole place bubbling. The fight with the Cuban dude, it was a spectacular fight. But going to Naoya Inoue's younger brother, I haven't seen him. I wanted to see him. I wanted to see. They didn't show him. For some reason, every time on the fight card, they only show the main events, the main card, the main championship fights. There's another middleweight Japanese champion. He fights there. I haven't seen him either, so I can't really comment on something I haven't seen. Apparently, he must be okay, but I haven't seen him. Until I've seen him, I'm gonna leave it open. So because I can only trying to be honest. If I seen him, then I can comment on him. So I don't know how good he is. I know that their father trains them. That's as much as I know. But eventually, obviously, they might make his way up on the card, but I'm not too sure about him. Sorry.
If you hadn't seen the younger Inoue, I know you've seen this guy, Guillermo Rigondeaux. And I'll mention this because I'm going into the card that happened on the 31st in Osaka, Japan. Rigondeaux going to Japan to defend his belt against a Japanese fighter by the name of Amagasa, really tall, 5'10", 5'11", junior featherweight guy who was moving down from featherweight to fight Rigondeaux. Rigondeaux basically had his way, moving around, using the jab and using speed to outbox Amagasa through the first 6 rounds. But towards the end of round 7, a surprise to us all, as Amagasa put Rigondeaux on the deck with the right hand. Another right hand put him down for the second time in round 7. And towards the end of the round, Rigondeaux, he was a little bit shaky there. But he recovered in round 8. I think he took that round off to recover. And basically round 9, 10, and 11 had his way with Amagasa, punished him, knocked him down at the end of round 10. Amagasa's corner would let him out for the final round because of too much punishment. Severe swelling over Amagasa's right eye, I believe it was. It looked like a grapefruit on the top of his head. It was that severe. New impressions of Rigondeaux and the heart of Amagasa, and the fact that he put Rigondeaux down twice in that fight.
Yeah, he fractured his orbital bone, and he dislocated he fractured his jaw. That's the report from the doctors. They said what Rigondeaux did to him after Rigondeaux was put down, and Rigondeaux was playing around with him until he got knocked on the floor. If you think about it, Rigondeaux's done that to Donaire as well. He done that same punch he landed, that straight left. He fractured Donaire's orbital bone as well. So it's like he's going after people's faces with that straight left with that orbital bone. But yeah, it was that the Japanese fighter put up a great effort. I mean, Rigondeaux's only he's 5'4", and when they get that guy is 5'10", officially on BoxRec, that's what he said. He said he was 5'10", and I'll tell you what, man, it would look like the guy was in a different weight class, but it didn't mean anything. I mean, you could be that tall and have that reach, but if you ain't got no skills or power to back it up, it was like a big punching bag. But I tell you what, when he knocked Rigondeaux down, I'm sure he's gonna frame that on his wall, man.
I think you did live comment. You did the English version of about when he went down. The Japanese commentators, the shock and awe in their voice, as well as in the crowd when he went down. It was kind of funny, actually.
Yeah. I mean, look, they were cheering him on. I mean, it was just, it was the crowd was quite quiet up until that point, but it was like, oh, knocking down, they could really hype and that. Even him himself, he went in there. The second one wasn't really a knockdown. It looked like Rigondeaux was pushed down, but Ortega got him for a knockdown. I think that really upset Rigondeaux, and then that was it. Rigondeaux dug his feet in the guy. He went after him. Even I said so as well. I was saying, like, all the old-time greats, if you're gonna finish it, you can't let this guy go the distance. It's embarrassing. I'm watching this real time. I didn't watch it when I commented. I watch it there and then, so I didn't get a chance to watch it. I heard about the knockdown, but I had to watch it myself. And he really put a beating on him, and he put exclamation mark in it, saying that, yeah, I'm still the best pound for pound, and if you think I'm not, look at this guy's face. He knocked the guy down as well. He put a real savage beating on this kid, and he even went over there and said, you done really good against me. But I'll tell you what, the Rigondeaux has proved to me that regardless of height, size, the Rigondeaux, if you were weight class past where they got pound for pound, if you were put in the same height as him, run measurements, Rigondeaux could take you apart. You could, like I said in the commentary, you can't hit him with a bag of rice. Throw a bag of rice at him, you couldn't hit him. So I was very impressed by Rigondeaux, man. It was a spectacular win. So I enjoyed that fight. It was one of Rigondeaux's most entertaining fights that everyone commented of the year. So it was quite enjoyable.
I'll go to you on this one, Gail. Your impressions of the fight and the future of Rigondeaux. It's interesting that before the fight, let's face it, the reason he went to Japan because he couldn't get fights here. None of the networks didn't really want to touch him. So he went to Japan. He got an offer there, and he took it and took the money with it. There's rumors that his next fight may happen again in Japan, as there's already an offer on the table. But given the fact that Rigondeaux went down, it may open up opportunities for fights that he didn't get before. It may entice some of these guys like Santa Cruz, Frampton, Quigg, any other top fighters at 122 pounds. It might entice them to say, hey, he went down against a guy who people didn't think highly of going in. Maybe I have a shot, and it may open the opportunities for Rigondeaux to get the fights he desperately wants.
Yeah, Rigondeaux, that was his last fight under the top-ranked banner. So he is without flag, as they say right now. The rumor is he does have another opportunity to fight in Japan. Whether that's true or not, we'll see. Leo Santa Cruz has recently called him out. Leo's a darling of the Showtime crew, and that also there'd be a bit of a psychic reward for Showtime in this because HBO is really the one that sort of kicked him to the curb, and they'd love to show off their guy Santa Cruz against Rigondeaux. Other interesting thing that Rigondeaux might consider is to look around the recent political landscape and the potential for the U.S. normalizing political relationship with Cuba. There will be some real status in being the first Cuban boxer to defend at a professional level back in Cuba. Interesting, Yuriorkis Gamboa, who lost to Terence Crawford in spectacular fashion, who I think all of us would be very happy to see again. Gamboa has talked himself about wanting to be the first Cuban boxer to headline a card in Cuba, in Havana. Well, no reason Rigondeaux can't fight him for that honor, muscle him out, or perhaps they both get down there and defend. And that'll be a big, exciting event for a lot of reasons that have to do with nothing that have to do with boxing, but have to do with politics. The American networks will be fascinated just at the prospect of staging a broadcast from there. you know, he might want to talk to folks and see what he can manage. I don't know how close we are politically to having that happen, but if you've got American television networks on the scale of HBO or Showtime wanting to do something there, don't you think that the president might grease his skids for him? I think so. And I think he should think about it. And I'd watch that just as a fascinating cultural experience, you know?
Good point. I really didn't think of that, but that's an intriguing prospect, a very intriguing prospect. I'll go to you on this one, Addy. Did you see the fight and your impressions of Rigondeaux, how he looked, and what may be up for him next?
Yeah, I did see the fight, and Rigondeaux was fantastic, as he always is. Super fast and great movement. But, I mean, this guy he was in with, he was a monster, wasn't he? He looked a bit like the Jaws character out of James Bond or something. But you know, he was going after him. But I've got a different view on this. I've watched that 7th round, and Rigondeaux was badly hurt. He was all over the place for me, and he got knocked down with that second. He got hit with a big punch, but then he got sort of thrown down. But he was still all over the place, and the end of the round, the bell went for the end of the round, and he got away with that. I think if there was a minute left in that round, he was getting knocked out. Now, for all that Rigondeaux is fantastic, and I think Freddie Roach said he's the most talented boxer he's ever seen. I think, I mean, he's 35 this year. He's had nearly 500 amateur fights. He's only had 15 pro fights, but he's quite long in the tooth, which a lot of people don't realise. People think he's just sort of burst on the scene and he's amazing and all this stuff. But he's been going for a long, long time. And in his 15 pro fights, he's been down 4 times. I think his defence is very, very lax. And I think a lot of the fighters are now looking at him thinking, yeah, I'll take him on this year. I think Frampton and Quigg and the rest of them can go for that fight now because his defence is lacking. He tries to be a bit too clever for his own good sometimes, and he leaves himself very, very open. And I don't think he takes a shot that well. So, yeah, I've got a different view. I don't think he is the pound-for-pound king. He certainly is in skill, but he's got things lacking in his armory for me.
Well, let's put this out in the open. Gail, EJ, Sean, your thoughts on what Boxing Addict just said about Rigondeaux? It sounds like if I'm wrong here, correct me. I get the impression that one, you feel that Rigondeaux is starting to show some signs of decline. A, and B, you think that he may be not the fighter that everybody's hyping him up to be. Gail, EJ, Sean, your thoughts on that?
Let me go first, go quick. I know you're chopping the bits to say something. I felt like, me personally watching me personally watching it, I hear what Boxer say. I was saying the same thing when I was commentating his age and stuff like that. But I just felt Rigondeaux wasn't taking it seriously. He was playing around with him, messing around, doing his job. It was all fun and games until the guy knocked him down. When he knocked him down, that's when he said, "Nah, I'm gonna do him," and he put it on him. And so if he's gonna get Quigg, Frampton, and the rest of the guys, he's gonna be. You see, after he got knocked down, put down twice, that's how it will be from the start. When he's focused and he has an opponent that he feels like is up to his level, Rigondeaux brings his A game, and it's spectacular to watch. You got a good point there, and that maybe in a way, him looking at vulnerable will try and make the fight, and definitely with his age, I agree with you. The low weights, he is quite old for that weight, but I tell you what, if I put him in there with some of them guys there right now, they still realize, if you see his foot movement and how he was gliding around the ring and he was putting on some stuff there that I was looking at, like, this guy is that really good, even at an advanced age he's got, and he showed the power he's got. All them guys haven't got that sort of power, so I hear what you're saying. You analyze it, that's good to see on that point. From my perspective, I think that if he goes against them guys there, he'll completely be more focused and come and put a really good display. Because I was saying, if you think about it, how would the 3 guys we just mentioned, how would they go against? How would they fare against him? Would they stop him, or would I think it'd be a harder fight for the 3 of them personally? But that's just my opinion. Go ahead, girl. Oh, sorry, you want to say something about boxing? Adi, go ahead.
No, I was going to let Sean go then, but go on, Gil.
Okay. Yeah, because
Well, let's talk about Rigondeaux. First of all, he's 5'5", and that's probably a lie. He's probably stretched it. Up against a guy who technically had a 6-inch height advantage. 6 inches, that's nuts. So, he's fighting a guy that was a very odd matchup. I also think because of his representation situation with Top Rank about to depart, knowing that he's kind of been stuck in Japan on what for him is the other side of the world, to get decent fights. He knows the reason for that. He knows that the rap on him with the American networks and the American fan base is that he's boring, right? So here he goes up against a guy who had to come down and weight against him, who's this tall, scrawny thing. And he decided, all right, fine. I agree with you that he kind of was fooling around, appearing not to take him seriously. I think what was really in the back of his head is, I don't have to take this guy seriously. He's not a threat. So, screw those American networks. I'm going to put on a show. They don't think I'm fun to watch. They don't think I, could showboat and be exciting and get the fans riled up. I'll prove him wrong. It was almost his undoing. I think he needs to get back to business, just like we know he can. And, maybe he's boring, and people say the same thing about Andre Ward, although he's, fading into distant memory at this point. And that's a discussion for another show. But, Rigondeaux, he knows what's going on. He's got to find another promoter, or he's not going to get any good fights. He's got to at least hold the potential of being entertaining. Well, we're all talking about him. He achieved what he needed to.
I tend to agree with Gail and EJ on this. So I think he just had an off night. I think his situation with him having a hard time finding fights and whatnot probably played in his mind during the fight. I also don't think he really took Amagasa seriously. And I believe if he was to land the big fights with the Quigg, with the Frampton, with the Santa Cruz, he will step it up. And I'll go to you on this one, Sean. Another fighter that we need to mention is Shizuku Yamanaka, who in a recent interview said that his plans for 2015 is to, fight a unification bout, maybe in the States. But he also said when asked about Rigondeaux, he said he would love to fight him. So when we talk about these future opponents, throw him in there as well. Your impression was everybody's been saying about Guillermo Rigondeaux is maybe do you agree with Agatha that maybe he's showing some decline, maybe he's not the fighter he was, or do you agree with EJ and Gail and myself that it was just an off night here and there was kind of some mitigating factors to his performance? Unmute yourself, Sean. Unmute yourself. You got yourself on mute.
Fox is talking dogs.
Okay.
I have nothing wrong with Rigo. He has all the skills that anybody would love to see. Power, speed, and skill. But I think a lot of his fans, Rigo apologists sort of turn me against him a little bit. Because, he fought this guy who is nobody. And I know he's ranked 7th in BoxRec, but he's never fought at this weight, so I don't know how he's ranked 7th by BoxRec. He was never ranked in the division above in the top 10. He never beat anybody. I mean, he's tall. That's the only thing that goes to his advantage. But he didn't fight tall. He didn't fight behind a jab. He never used his advantages. He was just basically put in there as an easy fight for Rigo, who took him for granted. Went out there trying to knock him out, I thought, because all he did was throw left hands the whole fight. 1 after 2, 3, 4, 5. He didn't show much variety in his offense. And when afterwards I thought he ran a lot and he held when he felt intimidated, and then he got knocked down and fine, he picked it up a bit and he did what he needed to do against nobody. Since Donaire, his team has let him down. Not so much Aram and HBO, but I mean, they have an offer to fight in the UK under Warren, and his own team was at conflict with that, his career promotions and his manager. So then he ends up in Japan, which I think a long time ago he should have done that, because he is getting old and sitting around not fighting isn't helping his career. He needs to stay active and get fights under his belt so that people see him, so he can build his brand. And I mean, I think him against Yamanaka would be great. I mean, he's there. You know, he has one more fight. They can build him up against another mediocre fighter, make him look good, and then have Yamanaka fight him for his belt, which would be a huge fight in Japan. And because they're both champions that are well respected, hopefully it could get picked up by an American, TV group and pushed over here, so we don't have to watch it in Japanese or in Spanish or
watch it a stream or wait till it pops up on YouTube.
Yeah, but I mean, I think he looked older. I didn't think he looked as zippy as he has in the past. And I mean, a lot of that might be because of inactivity. He hasn't fought much, 3 times against 2 35-year-old guys that have been active and one young, tall Japanese guy that nobody knew. I mean, he needs to get some fights under his belt. And I mean, people talk about these guys avoiding him. I mean, come on, Frampton and Quigg, they have big power. They're young guys, man. I mean, he would run, hold, and he would use all his defensive tactics to not get hit by those guys. He wouldn't be sitting there in the pocket being aggressive against them. So he could win, but it would be a boring fight because that's the only way he's going to beat those guys, because they're going to bring the fight to him. So, I mean, and none of those guys want to fight him if the money's not right. And it's the same from him. He doesn't want to fight any of those guys unless he's getting paid huge cash. That's why he was the highest paid guy from 122, even though nobody wants to watch him fight. He was still the highest paid fighter because HBO had to pay him. Hence, the guys he fought got no money and were nobody. So, there's my rant.
On the card, Rigondeaux, Amagasa. We mentioned this fighter earlier in the show, Takashi Uchiyama. As far as I'm concerned, he's the best junior lightweight in the world. He's coming off of a long layoff. He defended his WBA junior lightweight title for the 9th time as he forced basically Israel Perez to quit on his stool at the end of round 9. Tough fight, hard fight, but one-sided by Uchiyama. I think you did some commentary on this one, Errol, so I'll go to you first. Uchiyama, to me, he was impressive. I'm not going to say he was impressive. He won clearly, but in my eyes, I saw a little bit. You mentioned how, Sean mentioned how Rigondeaux showed a little bit of age, and so did Boxing Addict. In watching this Uchiyama fight, I watched the English commentary before the show, Errol, on your channel. To me, he showed a little bit of age as well, because he was dominant, but I've seen him look sharper and faster in previous fights. Your thoughts on Uchiyama's the way he looked against Perez?
I think he looked good. I was impressed. He did what he's been doing all his career. Just grinds people down, fudding, clubbing, punching, jabbing, body punching. Someone's typing the buttons there. Is it you go? I don't know who's pressing the buttons there. Anyways, but I'm getting some feedback slightly. Doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't matter. But, yeah, what I'm saying is that, yeah, he does what he's supposed to do. I mean, Uchiyama, like, he's not no flag. He just fights tall. He might be with Klitschko. He might be with Vladimir Klitschko. And I was saying in the commentary, he just stands up upright, uses his jab, right hand. Nothing spectacular, nothing thing. He doesn't need to. He just does what he needs to do. He's 9 defenses. He understands what works for him. He just grinds down his opponents. The only way you're going to get anything out of Uchiyama, the best defense that I ever saw was against Brian Vasquez. That was the only person. Al Bernstein touted as really a good hot prospect contender for his belt. Other than that, he hasn't really fought no one off that level. He fought a guy called Paez. He gave him a good chest. But other than that, he's just been grinding and beating people down. He is extremely big for that weight. Extremely. Looks like he's almost a lightweight coming down to that weight, and he just beats people up. Enough to me, he just does enough to just beat you. He doesn't really come out of his comfort zone. So for me personally, I was impressed. I was impressed of his dominance. He didn't take the necessary punishment, and he wasn't caught. You looked in the corner, he wasn't even breathing. There's other ways of impressing. We've got the Rigondeaux, the Flash, and what I'm saying, and the Terrence Crawford. But to me, I'm also impressed with the dominating guy who doesn't make himself short. He fights tall and uses his jab and uses his right hand and hook. And when he's up close, he leans his body down on you, wears you down. So for me, I was very impressed because I just feel like he works to his strengths and he doesn't go away from that. So that, to me, I think it was a very dominant performance. And if I was a competitor to fight him, he'd be the last person I want to fight because he's too strong. He's way too strong. So I was impressed personally.
I go to Gail, boxing addict Sean. Your impressions of Uchiyama, and what do you see going forward from him? Because sadly, I see a guy as a good. To me, I get Uchiyama. He's going to be that really good fighter that American fighters are not going to see. I think he's going to be relegated to fighting in Japan. There was talk of HBO showing some interest in him to bring him over, but that was to fight Marky Garcia. And now that Marky Garcia's moved up, that's not going to happen. So your impressions of Gail, boxing addict Sean, your impressions of Uchiyama and the future for him. Do you agree with me that he's just going to be that very good fighter that's going to be relegated to fighting in Japan and nobody really knows about him?
Well, to me, part of the problem is, in an odd way, he has a similar problem as a guy like Gennady Golovkin. Your opponents frequently help you make your reputation. And in that division, he's starting to really run out of people to look showy against. He's 32 years old, so the clock is ticking on him. He's an older guy to be in one of those smaller weight classes at that level. The younger guys who are
he's actually 35.
35. There you go. Okay, I should check my math. Even more so, to make the point, the younger guys, when they're young and skinny, can make the weight, great. But 99% of them have to move on and move up. He hasn't. He's still there, and he's seeing the young talent age up and and move up into higher weight classes. So you end up with periods that are really shy of decent opponents. At one time several years ago, you could imagine maybe him fighting. I would have liked to at some point see him fight some guy like Adrian Broner. Would have been interesting, but that ship has sailed. So I think that unfortunately his well is just going to run dry of opponents is going to be his biggest problem. And when that happens, you say, well, gosh, he's great, he looks good. We really don't know how good he is because, he isn't fighting anybody worthy of him. That's what everyone keeps saying about Golovkin in the middleweight division now. In his case, it's not a lack of talent. It's because nobody wants to do it. But that is going to be the case here, that there's simply no one for him to go up against that will make him look good.
Boxing addict Sean, your impressions of Uchiyama?
Yeah, I thought he looked really impressive in that fight. Perez was a very game guy, actually. He kind of had a bit of a go, but he was a bit wide and a bit ragged at times, and Uchiyama just wore him down. He's got a great jab, and he was hitting him with that uppercut through the guard throughout the fight, and he busted him up by the end. He's a really good fighter. I was looking at the rankings, and we've got 5 or 6 guys in the top 10 who have all unbeaten records. So there could be potentially some good fights out in Japan. I agree, he'll never make it as a big star for most of the people to see in the US. But that doesn't matter. He can stay in that weight, and he can fight some really good fighters out in Japan, and I'm sure we'll all enjoy it. But there's nobody for him to get excited about for the US fans, certainly, which is a shame. But we'll still see him in some good fights, and as I say, some unbeaten guys there to go on.
Sean?
Yeah, no, I agree with Boxing Addict. I mean, regardless if he becomes big in the States, whatever. I mean, we know with the little weight guys, they don't get paid and they don't get recognition in the States anyway. He has a big following in Japan. If he moves up to fight somebody in the division above, then maybe he would get a little more recognition because he's big, and I think he could make that jump. He's getting old, so hopefully he sort of takes the risk, gets his butt out of Japan if he's going to do that. If not, he can stay in Japan, and like he's saying, there's lots of guys young up-and-comers that he can fight and make big money in Japan, especially if he fights more than once a year.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to move on. One bit of news before we go into in terms of a little roundtable discussion about boxing in 2015. Nonito Donaire, who recently lost, as far as I got annihilated by Nicholas Walters last October, for a belt at 126. He's decided to move back down to 122 pounds, and any of you guys can jump in and add some commentary. Your impressions your thoughts about Nonito Donaire moving out to 122. I'm skeptical of the move, whether it will really work for him, because I'm beginning to wonder whether his heart is really in it. Folks, Donaire supporters will say, with some justification, that he's just too small for the 126-pounders. But to me, if he was to move down to fight Rigondeaux again, I don't know if he'll beat him. And at this point, I don't know if he will beat a Frampton or a Quigg. I think Quigg will give him a tough fight too. So your thoughts on the news of Nonito Donaire moving down to 122 pounds, and anybody can chime in.
Well, I was at ringside for the fight against Walters, and from my view in the seats, it was worse than it looked on television. It was a beat down. It was terrible, and it was a horrible disappointment. I think a lot of Nonito Donaire. I like him as a person as well as a boxer. I like what he stands for. You know, this was a lot of people's fighter of the year in 2012. Including me, and to see that happen was just plain painful. I think this is the only thing he can do, is drop down a weight class and try to get out of the way of the other guys who are going to mow him down. But I'm not sure it'll be successful. I wish him well. He's going to need to train hard, and I think you're right. You know, he achieved a lot quickly. I think it overwhelmed him. I really do. You know, sometimes guys need to be hungry to perform their best. You know, he had a full meal. There was nothing really left for him to check off the list other than to try to stay where he was. And, yeah, it was really tough for him. We'll see what happens. I think he's going to have a tough time. I really do. You know, will he, you know, maybe a rematch with Rigondeaux is one of the few things he can do. I just don't think he'll fare very well.
There's also a possibility of a fight with Santa Cruz, but don't know if that happened because of the network beef. Sean, EJ, Boxing Addict, your thoughts on Donaire deciding to move back down to junior featherweight?
I think Donaire was a great fighter. I mean, like Gail was saying, I think he just lost his passion, got caught up in a lot of other things, and he thought basically his skill would get him through, and he found that it didn't, and he hadn't trained, hadn't worked as hard as he should have, and it started to catch up on him. And then he moved up to fight bigger guys that were skilled with power, and he got his ass beat. And I mean, you know, I said maybe he could get that win because I knew he would land a shot on Walters, and he did, but he just didn't have enough, and Walters put him into semi-retirement. But, you know, you can't hold it against the guy if he wants to go to 122, fight a Santa Cruz or somebody and get a big paycheck. Because that fight would be in the States, it would push hard. I don't know why he didn't stay at 126 and fight Maris. Because, I mean, people have been talking about that fight for years. And it would have, you know, even though he's coming off a loss, it would have probably still got a big push behind it. They both have shown they're vulnerable. I mean, Maris just got KO'd by Gonzalez not so long ago.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure why he's going back down. I don't see anything for him there, really. He's had an amazing career. I'd probably quite like to see him retire now, because I think if he fights any of the top guys at featherweight or you know, or upper weight, he's a super featherweight. He's going to struggle. I don't see him beating Rigondeaux if he faces him again. So I'm not sure what's left for him.
Well, you know, I do think there are a couple things he could do, and they don't necessarily happen in the ring. I think one of the reasons he's going down in weight, by the way, is, you know, I don't think he has the power. at the higher weight class. He didn't really do much against Walters. Walters is a tough guy. I didn't see him hurt him at all. I don't think he's got the firepower that he used to. So I think that's part of the reason to go down in weight class. But the truth is, he's a fan-friendly guy. He's personable. He'd make a great commentator. He is beloved by Filipino fans in the United States, especially on the West Coast. They absolutely love him. He's a great ambassador for the sport. There's somewhere for him. I'm not quite sure where it is. I don't think his career attached to boxing is completely over once he stops being an active fighter. So he needs to explore some of those opportunities now. But, you know, a lot of guys are making that transition. There's room for them. And I wish him well. I'd like to see him stick around. And I'd like to see him become an advocate for voluntary drug testing, which he's been at the vanguard of doing so. It wouldn't hurt. There are a lot of good things he could do. I hope he doesn't go away entirely.
Aaron?
Yeah, I'd like to see. I mean, if you look at this, see the Waters fight. Obviously, Waters, you know, I got Jamaican heritage, and there was really a lot of the guys, Jamaican guys, were really interested in that fight. And in my perspective, when I saw the fight, when Nonito, he rocked Waters. He rocked Waters at the round, and the bell sounded, dusted him around. But obviously, Waters was much stronger and showed his dominance. So it showed to me when he rocked Waters at that point, he had the power, but it wasn't enough. The thing is, Nonito Donaire has always been the bigger guy. It was the first time he's coming against a fight, and the guy was actually bigger than him. So he's realized he did rock Waters, but it wasn't enough. So if he goes down to lower weight, he'll still retain the power. He'll still be the bigger guy. So he's thinking he could have more success in that way. And I think that's what he felt like it was attacked. That's a weight class a bit too much for him. So I felt like he might be able to do something, but you know, is Donito still got left? He hasn't got nothing else to prove. And you guys are right about his desire, but maybe in other fights he maybe be more competitive, because if he retains his power, he did hurt, in my opinion, Waters a bit. He shook his legs a bit. So if he goes down there, he might have that power, and maybe he can do something. And he probably wants to bow out with probably one more big win and then bow out. I remember, what's that guy who beat what's that guy's name again? A long time ago, he beat. It's gone. I remember. He just retired recently. The Mexican guy who lost against Johnny Gonzalez. What's his name?
Arce.
Yeah. Remember Arce lost in his big fight against. Who's the other guy Arce lost against years ago? And the guy retired. Carvajal. Yeah, Carvajal. That's it. Yeah, there you go. That's what I think Nonito wants to do. He wants a big win against the world champion and bout. Because you remember Carvajal just lost against baby Jake Mallara at that time. And then he had that big fight. So I think he probably wants to do that, get a big win, probably get one of them young guys and say, you know what, that's it. I'll call it a day. So that's what I think.
He certainly deserves probably one more crack, doesn't he, at world title? He's done enough in his career. He's been amazing, really. And yeah, he's a great guy, really likeable and stuff. So, yeah, why not have one last go? He could maybe go and try and fight one of the so-called lesser champions, maybe a Quigg or someone like that, and steal the world title and retire.
Well, the other possibility for him is depending on what he chooses to do going forward, is find somebody to fight and do a homecoming type fight in the Philippines. And that's a possibility for him. He'd be very well received there.
Well, that's what they're saying. His comeback fight is either going to be in the Philippines or possibly Macau. I mean, obviously with HBO, Macau is the big hub, but you know, the Philippines is only 2 hours, 3 hours away.
Right. Well, they need to fill those cards in Macau, that's for sure. And you know, they haven't always done their best doing that. You know, they've had to fill those cards with a lot of fighters who aren't particularly fan-friendly in the U.S. The great thing about Donaire is he is fan-friendly both to the Asian market and American market, so he's perfect for Macau.
Let's move on and kind of have a roundtable discussion here as we get ready to close down the show. On the last show in 2014, we talked about the fights that we wanted to see. That's not Mayweather Pacquiao. I want to go in further into that, but I also want to include like a boxing wish to do this in terms of what do we want to see, not just in the ring, but outside the ring, maybe from a managerial, promotional standpoint and whatnot. for me, for example, I would like to see Mike Tyson promotions, for instance, become bigger to play more of a role in the sport. I'm wondering what Rock Nation, what they will do. I wonder what Eddie Hearn, what he will do in the States and whatnot. And I would also like to see kind of a reevaluation of boxing judging and scoring based on how Mauricio Herrero got robbed twice in 2014. First against Danny Garcia and then against Jose Benavidez. So I want to go in terms of that vein as far as some other, and as well as some other fights that I would like to see. Other than the one we mentioned during the last show to cap off 2014. I'll go to you on this one, Gail. If you had a boxing to-do list for 2015, inside the ring and outside the ring, what would that be?
Well, first of all, let's talk about inside the ring, which is the fun part. We want to see Cotto. We want to see Cotto and Canelo Alvarez fight Gennady Golovkin. Golovkin needs a big fight this year. If he continues his trajectory and performs as well as he has in the past couple of years against bigger names, fighter of the year without question. He's just been the bridesmaid several times. He's just bubbling under the surface. He held a news conference here in Los Angeles yesterday for regional media. He has now permanently moved to Los Angeles with his family. He trains at the Summit in Big Bear, California, just a few hours up the road from metropolitan Los Angeles. 100 media showed up. 100 media for a nothing, no big news conference. It was strictly a meet and greet, routine stuff. Amazing turnout for a fight that isn't even, on these shores. So there's huge interest in him. Speaking of Walters, I want me some Walters and Lomachenko. Who doesn't love that? Bob Arum, get on that stat. You want to get
hear that, Errol? You hear that?
Oh, you want to get people excited about the smaller weight classes? That is the fight that will do it. Walters is a jewel for a million reasons. He's exciting to watch. He's fan-friendly. He's bilingual in English and Spanish, which is a huge plus. Friends of mine that are native speakers of Spanish say his accent is perfect because he's lived and trained in Panama for so long. So he's just a fascinating guy. Lomachenko, same thing. Fan-friendly, fascinating. They're both hungry. It's the best of all possible worlds. As far as other things going on, I would like to see the winner of next week's fight between Bermane Stiverne and Deontay Wilder fight Vladimir Klitschko. And now that Klitschko has an HBO contract, they can do it here. That'd be a great fight. Good stuff for the heavyweight division. Speaking of fights on these shores, send Carl Froch on over. Bring him over here to Las Vegas. I'd love to drive a few miles from home and go see Carl. I think that'd be great for him. And Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is saying in the last day or so that he would fight Froch. That's a great fight for Vegas. So, let's see something like that happen. Outside the ring, I'd like to see the efforts that Oscar De La Hoya has been making to break down this promoter Cold War in the U.S. continue to happen. That's nothing but good for boxing. Huge plus. I could keep going. I'm going to stop there. I don't need to dominate the conversation. I don't want to be too greedy. I'll take any one of those things, by the way. It'd be fine with me.
I'll go a combination between you, Errol, and Boxing Addict, with both of you being in the UK. In terms of not just in the ring, but outside the ring, what would you like to see, particularly in light of the news that Hearn is trying to bring Matchroom Sports here to the U.S. to promote shows?
Yeah, he's going to have an office over in the States now, apparently. He's going to try and get his own cards, some smaller cards on the go and build it up, but he's going to be working with Heyman quite closely by the sounds of it. There's some amazing fights. I think it's going to be a stellar year for boxing, I really do. There's so many great fights out there. Cotto Alvarez, Pacquiao Mayweather, I know we're not to mention that, but Froch Chavez, Walters, Lomachenko. There's so many great fights I want to see. Brooke Khan.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. And there's going to be so many. So, on the Cole Froch tip, I always have to have a little chat about Cole. He had an interview tonight on British TV, and he's categorically said, if I don't fight Chavez, I'll retire. So, the DeGale fight is not going to happen. He seems to think, he was basically saying, I've got 8 or 9 weeks training. I'm in training now for the Chavez fight. They've just got to agree to it. Aram's just got to agree to it. So from what I believe, HBO, Heyman and Hearn have all agreed. But now they've got to decide on whether it's under the Top Rank banner or what. So hopefully Aram will say okay and the fight's on March 28th.
Errol, inside and outside the ring, what do you want for 2015?
I agree with what everyone has to say, and I can't even. There's nothing more I can add. Everything. The heavyweight. I want one champion, heavyweight champion. Tyson Fury. I want him to have a shot against Vladimir Klitschko. I'm more interested in the heavyweight division because I believe when the heavyweight division is thriving, boxing itself is thriving. So for me, I want a champion, either one champion that Vladimir is the linear champion. I just like him to face the contenders. He's already took out Pulev, the winner and widest Stavern, and Tyson Fury. That's what I want to see. I want to see the big guy. I like seeing the big guys go at it. So that's all I can add really. Everything else you guys covered.
Errol, I've got a question for you, Errol.
Yeah, go on, mate.
Derek, you obviously see him.
Yeah.
What happened to him in the Fury fight? Was he just a bit below par, or what happened?
He got thumbed in the eye. They said he got thumbed in the eye in the second round, and then he wasn't the same after that. He just he goes through stages here where he didn't follow the game plan. And I was watching him train. I was obviously at the gym and watching him train up, and the game plan was for him to get close and to work the body of Fury, uppercuts and hooks. But he just followed Fury around, and Fury just played with him. After he got thumbed in the eye, and that was it. He basically just lost interest, and he just took a good raw beating. And even it was very disappointing. And not obviously we know about what happened after the ring, with the motor car incident where he got his daughter from someone, and now he has to do community service, picking up leaves and stuff like that. So yeah, it was very frustrating and very thing. I mean, it was a night that was really into with Sora. It's very, very sad to see that way, but that's the way boxing is. It's very goes, and that's why I would like to see him against Klitschko. But yeah, well, I saw the training and everything. I thought he would do really well. I was at Hampstead watching him run the hills. He used to phone Don and say he just wanted to train at night. He used to come all times of day just for his training. He had good sparring partners. Everything was working fine. But come to the night, nothing worked. So
he looked in the best condition I'd ever seen him. So I was surprised.
Yeah. He was in great condition. Remember he had a hand injury as well. He recovered from that. He was hitting the bag. Everything was fine. It's just that nothing turned up. I don't know what happened to him. Maybe at some point. We lost. Remember, Fury was the first guy to beat him in the first place. He just didn't turn up, and Don didn't take no excuses. They have to reevaluate and see. Me personally, I was thinking he should retire, but what's he gonna do with himself? Get himself. Obviously, he got himself in trouble as of late. So boxing's the only way.
Let's get him in there with Audley Harrison.
He ain't that far gone. I think he'll probably stay in the European.
Don't insult my show by mentioning Audley Harrison.
The King. Don't talk about the King like that.
That's A-Force. If A-Force came over here, you'd love him, man. A-Force is got such a bubbly personality, man. You know what I mean?
He's just for those who don't know, who are the back and forth between Errol and Boxing Addict. He's talking about Derek Chisora. EJ Boxing Live recently visited the camp of Derek Chisora, and it was giving an update. It was talking about the update in terms of in the aftermath of his loss to Tyson Fury in the rematch. And no, I don't. Audley Harrison, nope. He's disappointed me too many times. I don't care about the personality. That matters somewhat, but it matters what you do in the ring. And he's talked loud and done nothing. He's done that too many times to be like, no. Yeah,
but he's really big over here now because when he gets in the ring, everyone has a bet on whether he's actually going to throw a punch.
That's right.
That's so sad. So sad.
I'm telling you, people in Great Britain will bet on anything. Damn.
Back to Chisora though. I think we've got to give Fury all the credit, haven't we? Because he boxed really well. So I agree with EJ. I think Fury's going to have a big year this year. He's got to get a fight or Stavern Wilder, one of those.
That's right. I agree
with those guys.
Sean, your thoughts on 2015 and what you want to see, not only just in the ring, but out of the ring as well.
I hope they can standardize things so that promoters and fighters have less control of refs, judges, equipment. Standardize it across the board, have the commissions decide who is who and what is what, and take it out of the promoters and fighters' hands. It becomes too questionable, so that when a promoter's fighter gets the nod, then everybody goes to the rest and the judges and everything else, and it just brings some disdain to the fight. You know, I mean, the commission should control it. The promoters and fighters should have nothing to do with it. And it should just be fair across the board and standardized so that we don't have to deal with any of this bullshit. That's all.
What do you think about the showing the scorecards after every 4 rounds that I've seen a few times?
I think that's terrible.
No, I've never liked it.
No.
Not a fan.
No.
It leaves a bit of mystery, doesn't it, I suppose?
Like Trout Canelo, I mean, it really brought a bull to the fight.
No.
You know?
Yeah, they do it in Texas. I would like to see the judges have.
Speaking of Texas and judges, excuse me. Speaking of Texas and judges, can we find a way to get Lawrence Cole out the game?
Well, maybe he and C.J. Ross should have a conversation.
Maybe, but for those who don't know who I'm talking about referee Lawrence Cole, who has one of the seediest reputations in the sport right now as a referee. He has so many issues, and he keeps getting by. He keeps getting over. Suspended here, but he's allowed to referee somewhere else. He's suspended there, but he's allowed to referees overseas. I'm sick and tired of this dude, and I need for him to go in 2015.
Yeah, well, the problem with Lawrence Cole is, Lawrence Cole is protected by his daddy,
right?
And nobody wants to make dad mad. I mean, that's the big problem. So, I don't think we're going to have a whole lot happen there. We're just going to have to hopefully keep him from doing. We have to try to assign him the least harm possible.
Yeah, absolutely. If I had a wish for 2015. First of all, in light of what we talked about to begin the show, I want someone to find a way to get Inoue a fight of his aired here in the United States. My perfect scenario, if Estrada and Valoria are to fight a rematch, I would love that to be on a Boxing After Dark or a card in Macau and have Inoue fight on the undercard. I would love to see him, somehow get him to fight featured in the United States. You mentioned, I would love to see, I mentioned this on the last show, I would love to see Khan and Brook fight. Khan needs to stop being so thirsty about a fight with Mayweather and fight Kell Brook, because that's the fight for him. I would love to see the system of refereeing, of judging, not refereeing, but of judging in bouts. I need to see that deconstructed and reconstructed because, for my taste in 2014, it really soured me the way fighters got screwed over on decisions they deserve. I mentioned Mauricio Herrera, who got screwed over twice. He should be the junior welterweight champion of the world right now. Let's be real about that. I would like the issue of drug testing go further, not just towards specific fights and specific fighters, but make it universal across the board. I would like the Cold War to end between HBO and Showtime. I'm really intrigued by the prospect of Mike Tyson, his promotional company. I think he has a chance to become a power player. So I'd like to see how that goes. I'm interested in this. I know Al Heyman, he gets a lot of side eye for reasons, deservedly so. But I hope this thing with NBC really comes off, because if it does, that would mean boxing back on network television, and that's something desperately in the States that we need right now. So that's just a few for me. Any thoughts?
I agree with you on the judging issue. Judges need a camera. They need alternate angles. I think a lot of the problem is that they're only seeing one narrow angle of a fight. And with technology available, there are plenty of other sports that said, oh, no, we can't use cameras, we can't use replay, it's going to slow things down. We've heard it all, at least in American sports. It's worked fine. We have found ways to make it work. I think it needs to be done on a trial basis, and see if it can improve things. Let them have the same feed the broadcasters do. No commentary, no on screen, just a raw feed, and perhaps the ability for a couple of limited instant replay moments between rounds. It couldn't hurt. It really
I
couldn't.
agree with that. Yeah, have headphones on as well for the judges, so they're not influenced by the crowd.
I like that idea a lot. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Do you think that if they start doing that they might as well, you don't even need them, because it's like they're doing the same thing as a comedy. You might as well get rid of them. Just use the copy box scoring thing. You don't really need them at that point. That's probably why they probably ain't going to change, because it'll just be technology they're going to go by, how many punches are landed by. That's the only thing probably why they haven't changed it. Because if you're putting them in that position, it's just more or less like they're just doing a comedy position. I mean, anyone. I could say
not necessarily, because as we all know, just because someone throws more punches doesn't mean that they're winning a fight. Just because someone throws more punches doesn't mean that they're necessarily effective. You can have a scenario. Go ahead, Aaron.
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. But the bottom line is that the people on the line, there's corruption. There's a lot of corruption. A lot of the judges, when they come to certain places and referees, they get well looked after, and they feel some sort of loyalty, and that's what goes on. So there's corruption in there as well. Even though some judges are fair, you can see some are not. And it's always been around boxing. It's always been. But the best answer for that is having KO power.
Absolutely. Do not let it go to the judges if
that's
you can.
Right. You receive one. That's the UFC one. Right. That's it. They know what. Do not let it go to the judges. Don't. Just pull it on them. Herrera, I know what you're saying about Herrera, but you know what? I'm going to rare people to say tough luck is because you haven't got no punching power. I'm pretty hard on Herrera. I've interviewed him before. He's a nice guy. He's one of his favorite fighters is Parnell Whitaker, but he wants to outfight you. He's going to be there. And even when Herrera wouldn't even got no shine if he didn't output Danny Garcia in the thing. But he did that. Yeah, he done really good. But a lot of the times he's stepped up. It's because he hasn't got a lack of power. It puts him in close fights. So the judges, they squeak him out. It looked like he completely outboxed someone, but the judges don't think what he was doing is effective. It was a robbery to me. It's corruption, but that's what happens when you haven't got punching power. And it happened to Parnell, and it happened to a lot of guys with lack of punching power. But that's what I'm saying. I think there's a lot of corruption in the sport. I'm not too sure if them changing certain things. And if anything, they could look at certain judges and have other judges critique them. That's the way you can do it. It's like straight after they've done it, why did you do that? And have a panel there criticize them. That's what I think they should happen. But other than that, you want to kind of keep it more or less the same. That's what I thought. So.
You mentioned in the chat, Gail, about something about Tyson's promotional company being nearly close to being shut down. Get some insight into that, because I didn't know.
Yeah, apparently sometime in mid-December reported on ESPN that Mike Tyson's promotion company, Iron Mike Promotions, was having financial issues, having some apparently some kind of disagreements with his former partner, whose name escapes me at the moment, and they'd all but decided to go their separate ways. Now, Tyson's former partner, is linked in fairly tightly with, guess who, Al Heyman. So it looks like he's going to take his fighters over to Heyman's camp, leaving Tyson with the guys who remained, and again, kind of, a man without a country. I hope he finds a way to stay in. perhaps finds a new partner. But right now, it looks like his company may be on the skids for good. I hope that isn't the case. But keep an eye to the reports, and hopefully we'll see him bringing his company back under his own banner. I really liked what he was doing. He put on some great little programs. He's good for the fighters. He truly cares about them. He's been there, and I wish him well.
Yeah, absolutely. The guy who upset Alcemo Moreno to win the bantamweight belt, Tyson, his promotional company, they staged the bout.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what the problem is. I don't know if it's strictly money or if there's some more, difficult philosophical agreement disagreement that just couldn't get solved. But with his partner skedaddling and taking his guys over to Heyman, Mike's going to have to rebuild the company.
Last question, then we're going to shut the show down. Rock Nation Promotion is going to have their first card tomorrow, I believe. Featuring headlining is welterweight prospect Dusty Hernandez Harrison. Your thoughts, and I'll go to you on this one, Errol, and everybody can follow up. Your thoughts on Rock Nation? What do you see? Do you see any kind of moves that they will make? The potential for the Rock Nation in boxing in 2015?
Oh yeah, they got big moves. Well, Brian Shaw's been bought out. They bought out all these fighters, and basically they're using him as an overseer. So they've got people like Brian Jennings, which is very interesting, and they've got what's his name? I just interviewed Torino Johnson. They've got him. They've basically got all of his fighters on the.
Oh, the guy who gave Curtis Stevens a tough fight. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. That's correct. So they've got all of his fighters, and with the Jay-Z, all the celebrity stardom in New York, it's a good thing for boxing. I mean, they can try to regenerate. He's trying to do something new. Boxing needs something new, fresh, and something. Hopefully they bring some new ideas. But the main thing, as long as we get the fights, really good fights. Like you mentioned, the Mike Tyson cards. Mike Tyson's cards last year was one of the best cards of the year. If Rock Nation could do something like that, put them in good fights, that'd be good. Torino Johnson, when I interviewed him, it was earlier on this week. I interviewed him on Monday, actually. He's really looking forward to the fight, to catch the WBA silver belt, WBC silver belt and WBA international belt, and then he really wants to fight Golovkin. And the other two guys in the main event, I don't know too much about them, so I'll leave you guys up to that one. But I do know about Torino Johnson. He felt like he got robbed against Stevenson, Curtis Stevens. So he was a rematch with him, and he wants to challenge against Golovkin. No one else has called out Golovkin. He really went. He also told me he wanted to fight Billy Joe Saunders. He went to the Beijing Olympic with Billy Joe Saunders, so he knows about him as well. And he saw the UBAC man. He'd be interested in fighting him, and also Andy Lee. So I'm really looking forward to this card, and because I want to see, boxing. You want to see 2015, what Rock Nation are going to bring, and I'm really interested in just a new outlook how they're going to try, because it's been done before, but we're going to see how long Rock Nation is going to stay in the game. So I'm very interested in that, and also with Brian Jennings when he challenged against Vladimir Klitschko, to see how see what happens there, because if they ever got the heavyweight champion under their belt, they'd be a major player. So I'm really interested in 2015 for that, and obviously it's this week. That's tomorrow. It's today actually. It's later on today, isn't it? A couple hours, right?
Yeah. Still technically tomorrow our time, but today your time with you being in the UK.
Yeah.
Gail, Boxing Addict, the potential of Rock Nation in 2015.
Well, whenever you start a new business, one of the things that can ensure you hang in there long enough to generate your own success is, having a lot of capital, a lot of money in the bank to work with. No problem there, not with Jay-Z behind this.
Right.
They can have a few loss leaders in the beginning to establish their brand. There isn't anybody else just getting started as a promoter who could A, afford to book the Garden, B, invite their pals Rihanna and Carmelo Anthony to come hang out with them, and C, get Michael Buffer in as the announcer, for their first event. That's a good start out of the gate. Just those little things started, attracting a lot of attention. And they can lose money for a while. No problem, this is chump change to Jay-Z. His friends will come hang out. It'll be fun. He's gotten all the great New York club DJs coming in to entertain. Rapper Fabulous is going to be there. I mean, it's going to be a party, and that's exactly what boxing could benefit from. what happens in the ring, it's almost beside the point. The show is going to be the build-up of the partying. He's establishing a very modern, fun club atmosphere for, again, a new segment of potential boxing fans. Hey, whatever brings new fans into the sport, count me in.
Boxing Addict?
Yeah, I agree. It can only be a good thing. You've always got HBO and Showtime tussling with each other, and the same old guys, Aram and whoever, Eamon now. I think when fresh people come into it, they spice it up a bit and they make everyone try a little bit harder. So, yeah, I think it's only a good thing. So hopefully it works out and they put some good shows on, and it'll get competitive with regards to signing fighters and putting big fights on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to close the show down on that note. First, I want to thank Sean Newton for joining us. He had to step out early. Thanks for being with us again this week. I'm going to go to you, EJ, and then Gail, and then Boxing Addict. Errol, EJ Boxing Live, for folks who want to talk boxing or anything else, give the folks information on where they can find you.
Oh, EJ Boxing Live here on YouTube, Jarrett Boxing on YouTube, both of my YouTube channels you can find. I'm on Facebook, I've got a group in that, but it's I kind of add boxes and just people I know and that, so I wouldn't really advertise that. But just YouTube and thing. Hopefully you guys are talked to on YouTube and backwards and forward. EJ Boxing Live on Twitter. You can add me on that.
Yeah, be sure to check out his page. Not only he has his own little show with folks like Boxing Mixing Rise, Chris Caban, Ben Umar, the Blackbird Sugar of this YouTube boxing shit, Mr. Natty Turner, and others. But he, as I mentioned before, he does a terrific job of doing English commentary for Asian fights, particularly in Japan and Thailand and other places. So be sure to check his channel out. Gail, for folks who want to talk boxing or anything else, let the folks know where they can find you.
First of all, you can always read my column, which appears regularly on the online news site Communities Digital News, and that's CommDigi News, CommDigi News.com, where I write regularly. I like to hang out on Twitter. My handle is PRPro San Diego, PRPro San Diego. One of the most fun things you can do, especially if you're watching a really boring or bad fight, is have a chat on Twitter. You know, before we all just used to have to drink and get hammered. Now we can all chat and bitch about it. So join us. We're always chatting up as we watch the fights, and that's a lot of fun. Love to hear from you.
Boxing Act, let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, I haven't got a channel, so but I'm on YouTube and we can have a chat on there. I'm always roaming around annoying somebody.
Yeah, I'll give information on Sean. Troll is not always a good thing, but in this case, it's actually is a good thing. You'll find Sean everywhere talking on anybody's boxing channel. Just go to Sean Newton, ShawnNewton, on YouTube, where you can find him talk boxing. He also on Facebook as well under the same name, but basically on YouTube and Google Plus, anything that's talking boxing, you'll find him there leaving some kind of comment or whatever. So that's how to find Sean Newton. For me, y'all know what it is. I've changed my Twitter thing. My Twitter handle is @BrotherJR, @BROTHER, capital JR76. If you want to talk to me about boxing or anything else, Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter page, @P4P Boxing Report. Want to find out all things Pound for Pound Boxing Report, check out the blog page, P4P Boxing Report.wordpress.com. That's the blog, P4P Boxing Report.podomatic.com. That's the blog. That's the podcast page, on the podcast page and the blog. The blog page has past episodes of the show, the YouTube show, and the podcast, as well as articles written by me, as well as contributor Kayla Lewis. The podcast page has all previous episodes of Pound for Pound Boxing Report podcast. With that being said, that's our show this week. Next week, we will do a full-scale preview of the upcoming bout between Bermane Stiverne and Deontay Wilder. It's going down on the 17th. The show will be devoted exclusively to that. So we will have a preview of that, full-scale preview of that. I want to thank, again, Sean for joining us live from Taiwan. He had to dip out early. Thank Gail for joining us live from the West Coast. San Diego's in the building. Thank EJ Boxing Live. Thank Mr. Boxing Addict joining us live from the UK. For Gail, for EJ Boxing Live, for Mr. Boxing Addict, as well as Sean Newton. This is Michael, and this has been another episode of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Happy 2015, guys. Good night.
Good night.
Yeah, good night.